UFC Atlantic City was loaded with nut shots, eye pokes, early stoppages, and controversies. It might be the most controversial card we've seen in a while as far as reffing and outcomes is concerned. Either way, it was a really fun card, and I'm going to recap the entire thing for you. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and let's talk about UFC Atlantic City. Before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets. It was a mixed night. Overall, I put 3.5 units on the board. I took 2.7 units home. And if you are as good at math as I am, or if you're a janitor in MIT, like Goodwill Hunting, you figured out I lost a little bit of money. I lost $78 on this card. A unit for me is $100. I lost a little less than 1 unit. I did hit a couple of bets. Ibo Aslan money line, that was dicey, but we hit. The Chidi and Njokuani money line, the outcome was dicey when they got that big scorecard and called it a split. We'll talk about that in a minute, but that hit. And so did the Weidman Silva over 1.5 prop bet, where things went south when Andre Petroski knocked himself out shooting a takedown, when Luque decided she didn't know what the hell she was doing, and when Jamall Emmers tried to fight dirty with the doggiest fighter we have ever seen. The safety parlay also did not hit. Nursultan Ruzaboyev was my most confident pick on this entire card. Weird outcome. Fine. He won. Bill Algeo, on the other hand, I think that was an early stoppage. We'll talk about that in a second. Good news is Prize Picks hit, Underdog Fantasy hit, and all of that was well and good. Also, the robot hit. If you don't know, if you're new to We Want Picks, we have an artificial intelligence that picks fights. It's been developed for a little over a year now, or almost a year, I think, and it's been doing quite well. The last couple of months, it has been hitting at a very disciplined, stable accuracy. Tonight, on this crazy card with wild outcomes, it went 10-3 on picks. Obviously, Dudakova didn't fight, so 13 fights. 10-3 on picks. That is a 77% win rate. The losses, well, Bruno Silva, Jamall Emmers, and unfortunately, Bill Algeo. The Bill Algeo loss hurt me the most, but it did pick against Lupe and overall did an incredible job tonight. So we're going to continue to monitor the robot. It still says still in beta, right? Until this is fully tested, fully proven for a very long period of time, we're going to continue to put up the results. It will be available for premium members to take a look at, to monitor, to follow along yourself. But so far, so good. 2024, the robot, Pick GPT, our artificial intelligence, has been doing quite well. Tonight was a fantastic night. If you do want to check out those picks every week, you can unlock that and everything else we do, only $10 a month. Just go to wewantpicks.com, click Become a Member at the top, and you're obviously going to get UFC Vegas 90, UFC 300, UFC Vegas 91, all in that $10. Let's talk about the actual fights. I watched every single one, so we're going to talk about every single one. We opened up the card with Caolan Loughran, and he took on Angel Pacheco. This was an interesting fight, and I know I say interesting way more than I should, but Angel Pacheco is a straight-up dog. He lost this fight, wasn't even close. Like, this was not a close fight. There was a couple moments here and there, but this was not a close fight. Angel Pacheco did not stop moving forward. Now, Caolan Loughran likes to plant, likes to throw big, and he had some success landing. He shot some takedowns. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, so I'm going to say success instead of success. That's going to happen. But he turns into a wrestler. He has success striking, and he turns into a wrestler. And that's where Pacheco took over. When Caolan started to wrestle, and took over is an exaggeration. This was a beating. He lost this fight very clearly. But where Pacheco had his success is when Caolan looked to wrestle. And Pacheco just keeps coming forward, keeps that pressure on, stays in your face. And now Pacheco's in a weird spot because he lost on the Contender Series. He didn't earn this UFC slot with a win. He earned this slot because it was a great fight. And now here we are, his first fight in the UFC. And it also was a great fight. It was a great performance. You watch that and you leave it with nothing but respect for Angel Pacheco. But he got his ass kicked. He gave up a 10-8 round. He got his ass kicked. He lost that fight bad. So what do? You send him back to Contender Series? You cut him? You keep him? I don't know what to do with him because he showed heart. He came forward. He fought his ass off. He just wasn't good enough, and he might not be good enough for the UFC. We just don't know yet. Caolan Loughran did look pretty good, but the problem is he's got no jiu-jitsu whatsoever. Decent wrestling, zero jiu-jitsu whatsoever, and that's only going to be able to take him so far. Second fight of the night, immediately controversy. Boom. Here's some controversy for you. We had Andre Petroski win the first round on the scorecards. 10-9, across the board. All three judges said Andre Petroski won that first round. And he looked good. Now, early, like the first minute, he had a couple jabs to the face. His legs were a little wobbly, and it was like, oh my God, this dude is going to get knocked out. And he did. But it wasn't from Jacob Malkoun. It was by himself. This left-hand side, this picture. This is Andre Petroski shooting a beautiful single. Nothing hit him on the way in. A beautiful single. He's in there. He grabs the leg and then just collapsed. Like he had a heart attack. Like he literally just collapsed. Collapsed. Forward. Fell forward. Done. And then Jacob Malkoun jumps on top, slams away, and wins that fight. That just is what it is. I mean, how bizarre was that? My bet on this fight was Andre Petroski inside the distance decision, no action. I just needed Andre Petroski to finish or survive. Turns out, he knew I placed that bet. He knew how much Jacob shit on his gym, and he said, you know what? We want picks. You want to call us the Philly frauds? You want to make fun of us for how bad our striking is? I'm going to knock myself out shooting a takedown. That'll show you. And so both Jacob and I took a bath on that bet. It was a very, very bizarre situation. We saw 200 angles of it, and nobody's quite sure. They called it bony hips. They said Jacob Malkoun has bony hips. And Andre Petroski just shot such a good takedown so hard, so fast, his head slammed into those bony hips, and he knocked himself out. I recommend you go watch the clip. I would put it here, but every time I do that, I get slammed with a copyright strike. So no clip, just the pictures. I recommend you go on Twitter. It's everywhere. Watch that clip. It's bizarre. You could tell yourself, oh, yeah, but Malkoun landed a quick strike to the top of the head. That wasn't it. And he kept going, looked fine after that. Oh, his head slammed into the hips. I don't think that was it either. Because he hit the hip, he continued to move forward, and then he let go. And even when Petroski fell to the ground, he started covering up. It was a very, very bizarre situation that basically set the tone for the night. Just immediately, we're like, well, that's how this night's going to go. This is a very weird card with a lot of weird shit that's about to happen. Immediately following, the next weird thing that happened is Victoria Dudakova pulled out of her fight. Just fight didn't happen. They came on the broadcast. We have some unfortunate news for you. In the women's flyweight, boom, no fight. And fine, we had 14 fights on the card. Couple of things that frustrate me about this. One, do you think losing a fight would have sped up the card? No. All they did was kill more time. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section about the pacing of this UFC event. It is 1 o'clock in the morning, and we had, I think they said 8 stoppages, 8 knockouts on this card, and we still somehow managed to go till 1 o'clock in the morning Central Time? What are we doing? Speed it up. We don't pay by the minute. We don't need to see 38 commercials on repeat on the ESPN Plus broadcast. The pacing of this felt like a PFL card. It was atrocious. The other issue I have when fights are canceled, and if you're not a DraftKings fantasy person, feel free to skip to the next fight. We have chapters in here. But my issue is with DraftKings Fantasy, with FanDuel, and other fantasy products, when a fight is canceled on fight night, after you have locked in your lineup. So I have a budget. I build a fantasy lineup of 6 fighters. I then compete. I use my lineup. I compete with other people and their lineups. The problem is, if a fighter drops, I now essentially am only working with 5 fighters because that 6th fighter, Victoria Dudakova in this case, Melissa Gatto in this case, can no longer score for you. You're now competing at an unequal disadvantage. It sucks. And they tried to solve that problem last year or 2 years ago. DraftKings tried to say, we'll tell you what, we'll let you mix and match fighters, right? We're not going to lock your lineup in when the event starts. We'll let you move around. The problem was people were taking advantage of that. People were basically building lineups as the night went on. And it just created a very unfun environment. I know unfun's not a word. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It created an environment that wasn't very fun because now instead of setting your lineup and competing against other people, there were people sitting in front of a computer with 8 screens and all sorts of data, and they were moving pieces around. Each fight they moved, so, ooh, I need to score 80 points. Let me go here. And it was changing the whole game. So they removed that, and I think that was the right call. I don't know what the solution to this problem is, but this isn't the first time that this has happened. Last year it happened, I think, 3 or 4 times. where on fight night, in the middle of a fight card, a fight cancels. So it does suck when this happens. I don't know how they solve that problem. It's not UFC's problem to solve. It's definitely DraftKings' problem. I don't know how they solve it, but I'm curious your thoughts. Obviously, everybody's frustrated when it happens, but I am curious your thoughts on what we could do to potentially fix that for DraftKings events in the future. We had Ibo Aslan versus Anton Turkalj in a rematch, and this was sloppy as shit. And you start watching this fight, and you start to be like, how do either one of these people fight in the UFC? This is supposed to be the pinnacle of fight sports. Right? These are supposed to be the best fighters, most skilled fighters on planet Earth. And then we get two guys just swinging wild, throwing wild, sloppy messes, breathing. It was the sloppiest fight we have seen in a long time, and damn was it fun. This was a really fun fight. Anton Turkalj is going to lose his job. That's it. His job's done. There's no way they bring him back to lose a fifth fight in a row. There's just no way. He's done. But he came out here and he put on a show. This guy moved forward, threw crazy. He absorbed a ton of punishment. Like, he put on a show. It was fun watching the Pleasure Man, weirdest nickname. It was fun watching him in this fight. And Ibo Aslan, all right, fun, right? He just would plant those feet and just bomb. Nothing was straight. Just huge looping, bombing shots chasing Anton's head. His cardio lasted longer than it did in his last fight. That was great news. He was hitting the nuts, 13 times. So he got some extra breathers. That was great news for him. I will say, I'm pretty sure we all have to fade Ibo Aslan going forward, because did he look like a good fighter? No, of course not. Does anybody with like a stiff jab and a decent chin and some footwork gonna smoke him? Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen in that situation. But if you're going to try to brawl with this guy, you're going to get chinned. He has nothing but power. His cardio blows. His technique is not very good, but he's got power. He's got his own chin because he got cracked a few times, and he is willing to fight. Ibo Aslan, ton of fun to watch. This was probably fight of the night. I'm filming this before bonuses. I imagine he'll get a bonus for this. But I think we have to fade Ibo Aslan going forward. I mean, this guy is not good. Again, these are supposed to be the best fighters on planet Earth. Was he one of the best fighters? Did you watch him and say, this is one of the most skilled fighters on the planet? I didn't, but I did watch him, and I was thankful for the entertainment. Then we had Dennis Buzukja versus Conor Matthews. First of all, Conor McGregor was tweeting, who the hell is this Conor? There's only one Conor in the UFC. Pretty fun moment for Conor Matthews if he didn't get finished. If Conor Matthews did not get finished, that would have been a fun moment for him. But he did get finished, and then Conor McGregor just changed his name because he's like, we're not calling you Conor. Not after that performance. But all in all, it wasn't a miserable performance for Conor Matthews. I think a lot of it was just Dennis Buzukja, and they kept calling him Buzukja. I don't know where the I is, but we're going to call him Buzukja. Dennis Buzukja actually looked good. His striking was precise. His striking was solid. He would throw power, but he didn't headhunt. He had power in some of those hooks. He had power moving forward. And he would try to hit you with it, obviously, but he didn't just only chase the head. His striking was very technical, and he looked very good. What I am a little bit concerned about is he's supposed to be a very good wrestler as well. And we saw the wrestling in his first UFC fight. He stepped up on short notice against Sean Woodson, and he was 100% all in on the wrestling. And now here we are 2 fights later, and he's only striking. And that does concern me because we've seen that before. We've seen fighters that have very good, well-rounded skills that can only use one skill at a time. In this case, Dennis Buzukja attempted 0 takedowns whatsoever. None. He was actually taken down. And when he was taken down, we saw incredible scramble skills, great get-up skill. He looked phenomenal in that exchange. But then he went right back to the striking. Ultimately, he won this fight. And he looked very good doing it. So good for him. But I would like to see him mix in multiple skills. Because as you work up the ladder, you can't only be doing one thing at one time. I know he has the skills. We've seen them individually. We've seen him have good wrestling. We've seen him have good striking. We've never seen him have both things in the same fight. Dennis Buzukja is going to be interesting to watch going forward. Not a great human being. Got a little bit of trouble in his past life. But in the octagon, finally got his first win. Came out there, showcased some striking against a guy that's pretty durable and takes a beating. So Dennis Buzukja, congratulations on the win. and we'll see what they match him up with going forward. Then we had the biggest favorite on the entire card. Julio Arce finished Herbert Burns. There's a couple takeaways here. One, Herbert Burns is a quitter. We knew he was a quitter. We watched his brother carry him out of the cage in his last fight. In the analogy I used, like a bride through the threshold, just in his arms, limp, crying. And in this fight, Herbert actually looked good early. But he always looks good early. Watch any fight he's ever been in. He always looks good early. And he looked good early here. Yeah, a couple of wild knees to the nutsack. Got Herbert a little bit of a breather because his cardio was absolute trash. But he realized, hey, if I just knee Julio Arce directly in the dick, he's going to get a couple of minutes, which means I'm going to get a couple of minutes. And it worked for him until they took a point away. But who cares? Herbert's never going to win a decision, right? He's either going to get finished or finish somebody. He doesn't care about that point. But Julio did what everybody thought he was going to do. In the second round, he poured it on, landed some good clean shots, and Herbert never full-blown quits. But you know what he does? He turns his head, or he'll lay down and turn and like, all right, come on, doctor or ref, stop it. You can stop it, ref. You can stop it. I'm turned. You see, I'm not the fit. And that's what he did. He turned, let the ref stop it. So on one hand, we're very quickly going to say Julio Arce looked fantastic. But how good did Julio actually look? Because I'd argue he didn't look that good. Did he look bad? No, of course not. But I don't think he looked that good. He started as a massive favorite, odds-wise. But he didn't look like a massive favorite in that first round. In fact, he got hit a bunch of times. He got pushed forward. He got held against the cage. He ate a couple of big knees. And it really was those nut shots that sort of turned the tide a little bit. You could almost see in his eyes where he was like, oh shit, this first round is mine no matter what now. I won this first round no matter what now. And then in second round, he came out, he had some confidence, and he won that fight. So Julio Arce won this fight. And I'm not taking anything away from him, but I still can't figure out how good he actually looked. And if we don't have another long layoff between this fight and his next fight, as we have had with him in the past, I'm curious to see how he is going to look, because Herbert Burns came forward and sort of put it on Julio a little bit. Came forward, touched him up, came forward, threw a big knee, came forward, got him against the cage, no problem. So it's going to be interesting to see if Julio stays active, stays busy, what his next fight looks like. Ultimately, he got the finish. He got it in the second round, and he paid for himself if you got him at minus 400. But a lot of that had to do with the Herbert side of this fight. And then we had a very disappointing fight for a lot of people. This is one that the robot picked. The robot, or our artificial intelligence, picked GPT, picked Virna Jandiroba to win. And I ignored it. I was like, it's a robot. What the hell is this thing, though? I was wrong. Turns out that robot got 4th in the world on Tapology. 4th in the world. We log all of its picks on Tapology to track them. It got 4th on planet Earth. Of everybody that has ever made a pick for this card, the robot, our pick GPT, got 4th place in the world. And Virna Jandiroba was one of those picks. Ultimately, a couple of things. One, I should have had the over 2.5 of this fight in the safety parlay, and I didn't. And the reason I didn't is I actually thought Luque could potentially finish Virna. And you know what? Early, it kind of looked like that. Early, Luque defended some takedowns, was landing some very clean shots. But then Luque was just all reliable. And that's the second point here. Virna is very reliable. And I don't want to take anything away from her win, because this is a massive win for her, a tremendous win for her career, a huge win for her. I mean, Virna is sneakily building up this incredible resume that nobody seems to care about or appreciate. So I don't want to take away from her win, but I do want to focus on Luque just a little bit. She is insanely unreliable. I said it. The rest of the world said it. We said coming into this fight, you just don't know if you can trust Lupita Godinez. Go watch the Angela Hill fight. Go watch her fight with Cynthia Calvillo. Is that somebody you can trust with your money? And to start the week, I was like, absolutely not. I think she will win, but I cannot trust her with my money. And then as the week gone on, and as the line got wider, and as I saw that she had her Olympic wrestling sister, her sister's on the Canadian Olympic team competing this summer, and as I saw her Canadian Olympic wrestling sister in her camp working wrestling with her, I said, you know what? I am confident in Luque. And what did Luque do when she came out here? dumb shit. You know what this is a picture of right now? This is a picture of Luque hanging onto a knee bar for a full 5 minutes in the second round for no reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. Then it wasn't even a full knee bar. It was fully closed, wasn't close to shit. And she just laid there on her side while Virna just sort of hit her in the face and rolled around a little bit. And that's the stuff that makes her unreliable. Because ultimately, if Virna moved forward and got a takedown, there's only so much wrestling defense you can learn in a fight camp. And if Virna gets it to the ground, it is what it is. That's going to happen, right? Because her takedown defense was actually okay. It was these decisions. She stuffed a few takedowns and still hung out with the overhook. And still bumped her hips in instead of facing her and getting away. Instead of fully committing to sprawl and brawl, which is what she needed to do, she would engage in the grappling a little bit. She would hang out defending the takedowns a little too long. Virna kept shooting sloppy takedowns, getting bumped up against the cage, and then Virna would take Luque's back because Luque would hang on to that overhook a little too long. In wrestling, I've coached wrestling almost my whole life. I've wrestled almost my whole life. That overhook, we call it a whizzer when somebody's shooting on you. Great way to defend a takedown. And Luque was using the whizzer to defend the takedown. And then she hung on to it a little too long. And we call that in wrestling reaching back. At that point, if they're behind you and you're here, that's no longer a whizzer. You're now reaching back. And Virna just shucks it, took Luque's back, and that's what that fight looked like. So Virna, congratulations on doing what she does, which is come forward, grind, make fights ugly. But shame on Luque for getting to this level in the sport. To having this level of success, being this good, getting on that win streak, and then still making those type decisions. I don't fault her for getting taken down. Virna's so good at takedowns. I do fault her for making terrible decisions, like not learning lessons in round 1 and carrying them to round 2. Like holding on to half knee bars that aren't there for 4.5 minutes to basically solidify the fact that you are not going to win this round. It's impossible for you to win this round. You can't. Not in that position like that. And then the third round had some success. The only thing she needed to do to win that round was not get taken down, and then she got taken down. So the problem is I'd like to say, oh, this loss was good for her, for she'll learn from it. But did she learn from the Angela Hill loss? No. Did she learn from the gift of a decision in the Calvillo fight? No. So Luque is Luque. Unreliable, and let's let this be a lesson to everybody going forward. There's just some people in this sport you cannot trust. And Nate Landwehr is not one of those people. You can trust this guy. He might not win every fight that he's been in, but he will fight in every fight that he will be in. This guy is a dog. He's the epitome of that meme of an X-ray with some dogs inside of somebody's chest. That's who Nate Landwehr is. What you don't see in this picture is his forehead is gushing blood because early, Jamall Emmers cracked him. Jamall Emmers split him open. Jamall Emmers dropped him. Jamall Emmers looked incredible early. And then Nate does what he does, which is take his beating and then move forward. And Nate looked absolutely incredible. He looked incredible. He had power in his hands, good forward pressure, and this was another one of those fights where if you go back to my quick picks video, I picked him to win. Jamall, I picked him to win. But I was like, man, you can't put money against Nate Landwehr. But then the fight week went on, and you watch Nate's stuff, and okay, Dan Ige just knocked him out. He gets hit a ton. Jamall Emmers hit so hard. You know what? Let me parlay Jamall Emmers with Lupita Godinez. We should be good. And we were not good. And you know what? If one leg breaks, you might as well burn the whole place to the ground, let them both break. And I love it. And when I say I love it, I mean I love that Nate Landwehr comes forward, Nate the Train, doesn't care what comes back his way, and tries to win these fights. Wildly entertaining. He's never been in a boring fight, and this was a spectacular win for him. He overcame adversity early, and he beat a very, very good guy in Jamall Emmers. I think Jamall Emmers' biggest problem in this fight was that he didn't fight clean. When he was fighting clean early and landing and staying out, landing and staying out, he had his most success. But then when he stood around the pocket a little too long, tried to turn it into a brawl, probably got a little confident in himself because he rocked Nate and he's like, oh, I'm good here. That's when it got away from him. When he forgot this guy doesn't just go out he basically needs to be 100% unconscious or he's still going to keep marching forward. He forgot that part. And he turned this fight into an ugly fight when he should have just kept it a distant striking match where he was having some success. And then we had Chidi and Njokuani. First of all, can't say more good things about this guy. This was his first fight back at 170 in a very long time. He has had a rocky history with the 170-pound weight class. I don't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but he missed weight more than he made it. He permanently has a different voice. His voice is like, rah, rah. He sounds like he smoked 100 packs of cigarettes a day. And that's because he damaged himself permanently cutting weight when he was at 170. But he made weight easy for I don't know if it was easy. He made it look easy, making weight. And then in the octagon, instead of slowing down as the fight went on, he actually gained steam. He was better in the second round than the first, better in the third round than the second. This guy looked incredible moving forward. But all of us were very nervous for those scorecards. It was somehow a split decision. The announcers were like, what are we waiting for? Chidi and Njokuani won round 2 and 3. What are we waiting for? And I had an angry tweet ready to go. And I didn't need to send it because ultimately Chidi and Njokuani won this fight. And he should have won this fight. So I didn't have to send that tweet. But the tweet essentially was a response to the last couple of weeks where we have seen people dominate with control time, dominate with wrestling, and then not get those decisions. And the collective community said, control time doesn't matter. Control time's not a scoring criteria. Control time's useless. And you know what? I tend to disagree with that, but if that's where we are, if this is the ultimate kickboxing championships and control time doesn't matter, how the hell did Rhys McKee win 2 rounds on one judge's scorecard? How did a judge give Rhys McKee this win if control time doesn't matter? Because that is the only thing he did, was hold Chidi against the cage as long as he could. He was like 0 for 29 on takedown attempts. Chidi actually got a takedown. All Rhys McKee did was come in, throw what he could throw, look decent in the first round or half of the first round. Second and third round, all he did was move forward and try to hold Chidi against the cage. That's it. That's all he did. And a judge saw that and said, I like it. I'm giving that to him. So my angry tweet was ready to go, saying if Isaac Dulgarian didn't win his fight, how the hell did Rhys McKee win his? And it was dicey because it took them a solid 5 minutes to get those scorecards in order. 5 minutes to get the scorecards in order. And we've seen many split decisions before that didn't take that long. I don't know if they went back to that judge and were like, are you serious with this shit? Like, is this actually what you wrote down? I don't know what took so long, but it was dicey. And I was positive they were going to screw Chidi. Luckily, they didn't. He ultimately won that fight. But in the future, when we're breaking down Chidi and we're doing our research and we see split decision, it was not. It was a beating. But he definitely lost that first round because he was slow to start. But that second, that third, very clear Chidi rounds. Chidi at 170 pounds is a dangerous, scary guy. And then we had another controversial part of the night. And this is very frustrating for me. This is going to chap my ass a little bit more than most. And that's because I'd had Bill Algeo as the second leg of the safety parlay. And I said all week, I didn't put up a safety parlay till Thursday. And that's because I knew Nursultan Ruziboyev was going to be in. I knew he was. I was like, that's my most confident pick on the card. Nursultan will be in it. What the hell am I doing for the second leg? I thought maybe the over 2.5 on the Luque fight. I don't know, man. Lupe's good. There's a lot that could. You know what? I'll do Bill Algeo. He should win this fight. He's got good enough footwork and head movement to not get finished. And then let's look what happened. This image that you see right here, this is Gary Copeland stopping the fight. He's stopping the fight right here. And yeah, Bill Algeo's eyes are closed, so that's not a spectacular look. But hopefully what you can get from this picture is Bill Algeo was standing up, vertical. What you can't see in this picture is there was a minute or less left in this round. And what Bill Algeo does really well is, yes, Kyle Nelson was just bombing right, just throwing right hands as fast and as hard as he could at Bill Algeo's face. And Bill was not doing much about it. So I agree with all of that. What he was doing, though, is he turns his head with it. So it connects, but it's not huge. Bill wasn't wobbly. He wasn't falling. At least let the guy fall down. This is the highest level of this sport. And you did a standing knockout with a minute or less left in the round. What are we doing? Instantly, Bill Algeo was like, what? Whoa. And it was just insanely frustrating. And I actually like Gary Copeland. I spent a bunch of time with him. I used to do a good amount of work with the XFC. I used to manage fighters. I had a lot of fighters on that roster. We flew out to Turkey, actually Cyprus, which is half Turkey, half Greece, depending what part of the island. We went out there for XFC 12. Gary Copeland was the referee. They flew him out too. I spent a whole week with the guy. He's a good guy. He's a good dude. And I actually think he's a pretty good ref. I just think this was a terrible call. And I understand the referee is there for the fighter's safety. He is there not to make sure the right person wins. He is just there to make sure the fighter stays safe and everybody follows the rules. So an early stoppage when you're getting blasted with rights listen, it's in Bill's best interest. But I do think this was a bit quick. I think you have to at least let him fall. You have to at least let it go to the end of the round if it stays standing. It felt a bit quick. I don't know if anything was going to change. Kyle was moving forward, throwing heavy, landing. So I don't know if anything was going to change, but I do think a standing TKO, a standing referee stoppage needs to be like what we saw with Shane Burgos when he was like 3/4 dead on his feet. That's a standing TKO. Or the cage is keeping you vertical. Not in the middle of the octagon, standing perfectly fine on your own 2 feet. Controversy again. There's a theme here. Every single one of these fights had some sort of controversy. I honestly don't think there was a single clean fight that didn't have a bizarre end, didn't have some referee interference, didn't have an eye poke, didn't have a nut shot. I don't think there was a single fight of these 13 fights that didn't have something weird going on. And this one was no different. Nursultan Ruziboyev versus SD Dumas. I was positive Nursultan Ruziboyev was going to win this fight. But I was positive he was going to win this fight because of his wrestling. You haven't seen it yet in the octagon, but he's a very, very good wrestler. He will take you down any chance he can get. He'll catch a kick. He'll shoot a takedown. He'll take you down any chance he can get. And we've seen in the past, SD Dumas' takedown defense sucks. It's not good. And this fight started, Ruziboyev had a ton of success. He looked very good early. The takeaway early was, wow, SD Dumas has a chin. And he does have a chin because Ruziboyev blasted him more than one time. Hard. He hit him very hard. And SD just took it. He ate it. In one of those exchanges, Ruziboyev's finger went in SD's eye. The referee didn't see it. It's some referee I've never seen before. He didn't see it. So SD did the wrong thing. He turned his head, he covered his eye, and he basically assumed or tried to get the referee to stop the fight. He basically assumed the fight was done or timeout so he can work on his eye, or he figured if I turn my head and if I do this, the referee will give me my time. He was poked in the eye. There was a bunch of angles. It was hard to tell. And then eventually they found an angle where, okay, he was poked in the eye. Was it this severe? I don't know. But he was poked in the eye. But they literally say, protect yourself at all times. And SD Dumas did not do that. The protect yourself at all times also applies to when a referee doesn't see something and they should have. So 2 people are at fault here. Ruziboyev's not one of them. Because this was SD charging forward. It wasn't Ruziboyev poking like this. SD charged forward. The 2 people at fault are the referee. You were obviously in the wrong position if you didn't see it. When SD reacted, you either have to yell, keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. You'll see the better referees. You'll see Mark Goddard. You'll see Dan Murgliata. I don't know if he's still reffing, but you'll see those referees yell, I didn't see it, keep fighting, or keep fighting, keep fighting. There were no words spoken by this referee. He didn't say he acknowledged it. He did nothing. He said nothing. He just nothing. So SD covered up, turned his head, and Nursultan did exactly what he was supposed to do. Hey, I'm in a cage. This fight is active. You don't stop until the ref tells you to stop. And he came forward, landed a bunch of shots, and put SD Dumas out. Ultimately, I thought Ruziboyev was going to win. So the outcome didn't surprise me. How we got there did. It's SD's fault for turning his head. It's SD's fault for not protecting himself, for not fighting in that cage. It's the referee's fault for not being in the right position, for not reminding that fighter that they are still live. This is still a fight. A couple people had fault there, but that just is what it is. It was all well within the rules. The eye poke was SD charging forward, not Nurzulton, fighting like this. None of that craziness like we saw with Chris Weidman, which we will break down in a minute. Oh, speaking of, more controversy. We have two pictures here. These are two separate pictures. The picture on the left is Chris Weidman poking Bruno Silva in the eye, Bruno's right eye. The picture on the right is Chris Weidman poking Bruno Silva's left eye. And this was the same exchange. This wasn't different exchanges. This was the same exchange. You'll see on the left, it's Chris Weidman's left hand. On the right, it's Chris Weidman's right hand. He literally threw a 1, boom, poked in the eye. Threw a 2, boom, poked in the other eye. And it was unfortunate, but they still got to the right result. So let me rewind and back up. We have Chris Weidman, 39 years old, trying to get his first win in God knows how many years. And that first round, he looked good. He was sharp. He had a really nice head kick. He looked good in that first round. Had a takedown. Like, he looked good. Chris Weidman was like, oh shit. Like, he's still like old. And he wasn't 30-year-old Chris Weidman, but he still looked good. Bruno Silva threw some heat, connected big, and Chris just ate it. Like, okay, this is a fun fight. Second round, a little bit more of the same. A little bit more of the same. Chris Weidman's doing well, having success. Some back and forth, good pressure. I think it was 2-0 going into the third. Third round, we have this, the double eye poke. And there were eye pokes leading up to this. There were eye pokes in the first and eye pokes in the second. And at one point, Chris Weidman really poked Bruno's eye pretty bad. And then Bruno drops. And this is right after Chris Weidman already poked his eye. Okay, so Chris Weidman poked Bruno in the eye. Gets warned, like, hey, watch your hands. A couple minutes later, pokes him in the eye again. But this time, because Gary Copeland doesn't want to take away a point, he doesn't want. How could you take away a point from Chris Weidman in New Jersey? How could you do that? He doesn't want to do it. You could see he doesn't want to do it. So he goes, oh, you both poked each other in the eye. You both poked each other in the eye. It was a double eye poke. So nobody's at fault. Double eye poke. And they go to the replay. Chris Weidman straight up poked Bruno Silva in the eye. Clear, done, boom. And Bruno kind of poked. I mean, he had a closed fist punch. And in that closed fist punch, the thumb grazed Chris's eye on the way out. But Gary Copeland, understandably so, doesn't want to take a point away from a guy that comes out to, I won't back down. Mr. America, fighting basically at home. I get it. You don't want to take that point away, no problem. But what happened now in the third round was Chris lands this 1-2, literally poked him in the eye twice. With the 1, and then again with the 2. So he lands that. Then, after that happens, instantly Bruno Silva covers his face, drops to the ground because both of his eyes got poked bad. This is basically the exact same situation as the SD Dumas thing. It's protect yourself at all times. And he did protect himself by covering his face and curling up into a ball on the ground. Chris Weidman comes forward, lands a bunch of shots. They call it TKO. They call it a KO, TKO for Chris Weidman. He wins by third round TKO. And Bruno Silva's freaking out. Understandably so. Like, guys, I got poked in the eye. You didn't see this shit. It was bad. How could you declare him the winner? Ultimately, the commission ended up getting it right because what the commission did was they went to the scorecards. Like, you know what? That was a bad eye poke. Let's just see what the scorecards were. We're in the third round. We can go to the scorecards. And everybody had it 2-0 going into the third. So they said, you know what? Instead of calling this a TKO for Chris, we're going to stop the fight at the eye poke. We'll stop it right there. We'll go to the scorecards. So this is now a decision for Chris Weidman. So this went down as a decision. If you got paid on a Chris Weidman KO, you better withdraw that money before they try to take it back because that's not the actual fight result. So while they did that correct, and while they ultimately rectified or at least reinforced that, yes, Chris Weidman won this fight, we even went to the scorecards for you. What really should have happened is in that second or that third eye poke, whatever it was, they probably should have taken a point. And I'm not a big take a point kind of guy, but Gary Copeland took a point from Herbert Burns earlier in the night with the 2 nut shots. So Herbert loses the point with 2 nut shots, but Chris Weidman doesn't lose a point with 2 eye pokes. And I'm good with it because I'm biased as shit and I love Chris Weidman. But if we're going to enforce the rules, we have to enforce them exactly the same for everybody across the board. It's not even 2 different refs. It was the same ref. The same ref didn't follow his own strict guidelines there. And if they did follow those rules, if Gary Copeland did follow those rules, and Gary Copeland took a point from Chris Weidman, this is probably a draw. I think it's a draw. Because you're really only scoring 2 rounds, not 3. 1 round would be for Weidman. The other round would be a draw. I actually don't know how they would declare that outcome. Let me know if you know in the comment section. But if you only score 2 rounds, and one's for Weidman, and one's a 9-9, what happens there? Does Weidman still win because he won the first round? I don't know. But ultimately, another bizarre, controversial outcome. And then we have the co-main event. No controversy here, thankfully. Unless you think pulling guard is a good way to fight in a cage, because that's what happened. Joaquin Buckley looked good. Going into this fight, Jacob in his live stream, the commentators were all talking about how Joaquin Buckley was literally at a pool party just hours before his fight. A pool party. Hours before his fight. Warming up, dancing, feeling it. And people were like, oh shit, this guy is going to get started. This is not going to be good for him. But he came out there and he looked spectacular. Joaquin Buckley looked the best he's ever looked at any weight class. Big, giant movements left to right. So lightning fast. Everything he threw had insane power. Early in the first round, it was a weird exchange. I don't think he dropped Vicente, but I think Vicente was a little off balance. And then Joaquin pushed him. Vicente's on his ass. And Joaquin was like, no, I don't think so. Stand up. Good pressure. Stayed in his face, struck with who everybody thought was going to be the more technical striker. And then in the second round, at the end of the first round, Vicente Luque attempts his first takedown and gets it. And it was almost easy. So like, all right, that's all he has to do to win this fight is shoot a takedown. We go to the second round. Vicente doesn't really shoot an actual takedown. Gets a little weird with it. Trying to close distance, can't. Trying to find Joaquin Buckley, can't. Trying to get to him and can't because Joaquin Buckley's moving too much, too fast. His footwork is too good. And when he's throwing strikes that direction, they're too powerful. And Vicente Luque struggled with it. So what did he do? Like the good Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt that he is, he pulled guard. And what happened when he pulled guard? Joaquin Buckley beat the shit out of him, as you should. If you're going to pull guard, then you're going to get your face bashed in. What a joke. Dude, the guard pulling is nonsense. Now, if you want to pull guard at the end of a third round, in the fifth round of a fight, and that's it, that's your Hail Mary, fine. We're talking 2 minutes into the second round, you're pulling guard. So he pulled guard, and it was a fake takedown attempt to a guard pull, and Joaquin was like, yeah, I'll hang out down here. Boom. And then just finished him on the ground. Vicente turned his head, and that was it. And I kind of hate myself for this pick because I'm a known Vicente Luque hater. For years, I've been saying he's not as good as everybody says he is. He's just not that good. And for years, I picked against him. And then this week, I didn't. And I'm never picking against Joaquin Buckley again. Not at 170. Not until we see him lose because he looks incredible. He looked spectacular at 170 pounds. All the power, all the speed, more footwork than he's ever had. And he didn't look like he was breathing heavy at all. And then the main event of the evening. This image right here is exactly what happened the entire main event. Erin Blanchfield, tough as shit. You got to give her credit. She is insanely tough. But she's too tough for her own good. She literally, the whole fight, we're talking about a 25-minute fight, pretty much, okay, in the first round, Manning shot a takedown. I think just to confuse Erin. Manning shot a takedown. Erin immediately has her in a guillotine. It looks actually really tight. Manning works her way out of it. Doesn't shoot another take. Like, all right, we're good. That was dumb. I'm not going to do that again. So from that point forward, what happened was Manning turned into a typical French fighter. An outside striker. And an outside striker loves when you come lunging in with some nonsense. And that's what Erin Blanchfield did. She came charging forward, reckless abandon, trying to close the gap to get a takedown. Ask me how many takedowns she got. Ask me how many takedowns Erin Blanchfield got. 0. Ask me how many I said she would get. 0. And that's the problem. Erin Blanchfield's only 24 years old. She has an entire career ahead of her. I have no doubt in my mind that she's going to be successful because she's got a couple things going for her. One, stupid tough. At no point in this fight did she quit, even though she got 50-45. She didn't win a single round. And she got blasted in the face over and over again. She had literally no success wrestling whatsoever. And she continued to move forward, continued to try to win this fight. She is not a quitter. She's not Herbert Burns. She's not pulling guard like Vicente Luque. She's a good old American grappler. And as an American, she knows how to move forward and take her beating and continue to move forward. She's a female Nate the Train minus the striking power. She just continued to charge forward and Manon would step off and blast her. Step off and blast her. Just literally on repeat for 20 of the 25-minute fight. Erin Blanchfield moves forward. Manon Fiorot steps off, boom, cracks. Steps off, boom, cracks. And there was no success. The most success Erin Blanchfield had was when Manon shot a takedown and Erin squeezed her neck. And then the second time Erin had a little bit of success, I think it was the 4th round, where she just said, screw this, and just charged forward, swinging crazy. And it took Manon off guard because she was like, oh shit, had to compose herself. And then she did compose herself. And then just pieced up Erin the rest of the way. So, is Erin Blanchfield the next Mackenzie Dern? A very good grappler who can't get it to the ground because they suck at wrestling. She might be. She might be. The difference, though, is while both Erin and Mackenzie are very tough, Mackenzie Dern is also insanely tough and will take her beating. The difference, though, is Erin's not a jiu-jitsu nerd. She does want to wrestle you to the ground, but she's not going to pull guard. She's not going to climb your body against. She's not going to do that stuff. She's going to come forward. She's going to try to box you up. She will stay in your face. She will throw heavy, and she will try to shoot takedowns. Her takedowns suck. They're not good, so she's not getting them. But they can get better. She's only 24 years old. Manon Fiorot won this fight. This was actually a pretty good fight. It was a tense fight. It was entertaining. Was it spectacular? No. But it meant something to the division. Manon Fiorot could quite literally be the champion later this year by doing exactly what she just did. She's the better striker in most situations. What I will say, to beat her, Erin just gave us the blueprint on how to beat Manon Fiorot, even though Erin had limited to no success in this fight whatsoever. And it's not to try to take her down. It is stay in her face and make it ugly. The uglier you make the fight, the more you stay in her face, the more success you can have, because Erin had a sliver of success doing that. The problem was Erin just charged straight forward with no angles, doing the exact same thing on repeat. So it didn't take Manon long to figure out what the hell she was doing and how to counter it. But if you mix it up, if you come in bobbing and weaving, and you come in swinging wild, kicking, faking takedowns, coming up to that, and you just move forward Nate the Train style, you can beat Manon Fiorot. This was a pretty good card minus all of the wild controversy. Let me know how you did below. I imagine everybody got cooked a little bit on some of these bets because the card started with a whole bunch of favorites and then completely flipped to all dogs. You realize Manon Fiorot was the 7th underdog this year. We've only had 11 fight cards, and Manon Fiorot was the 7th underdog to win in a main event. That's the kind of year that we are having in 2024. Guys, thank you so much for the watch. I do ask that you sign up with our affiliates, and in return, we will give you $50. Just go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our affiliates using our link, make a deposit, and we send you $50 as a thank you. It's affiliate marketing. They're going to pay us, and then I'm going to slice off some of that money and give it right back to you as a thank you. Got to use the link, got to make the deposit. We send you $50 as a thank you. You then use that money to become a premium member. Premium membership is going to unlock everything you could ever need for any fight card. And obviously, it's been a little bit of a rocky road with some of these wild cards. But overall, the long-term success is there. The safety parlay, while it did lose, continues to be successful. I hit 11 of the last 16. It hits at almost 70% rate. The lifetime ROI is creeping in on 30%. But it's not just one single bet. You're also going to get tools like the line movement tracker. It's going to give you opening odds, current odds, win probability, and live movement for every fighter on every card. You're going to get detailed data, metrics, and analytics that you can use, like I did, to fade Aaron Blanchfield. You're going to get all their stats, striking, grappling, and everything else. You're also going to get the DraftKings Optimizer. This is going to build 150 DraftKings lineups for you with one click. And it's going to be preloaded with the best ownership projections in the game. And you're going to get far more than just my picks and bets or Jacob's picks and bets. You're also going to get Artem's and the Pick Doctor. The Pick Doctor is the artificial intelligence that I talked about earlier that went 10-3 on the night, that picked at 77% accuracy. That is the Pick Doctor. Number 4 in the world on Tapology for UFC Atlantic City. Unlock all of this and more at WeWantPicks.com. Just click Become a Member at the top.